The AMD Radeon RX 7600 is here at last, and why stop at just one review when we also have the Gigabyte RX 7600 Gaming OC in the office too, featuring their triple fan cooler design that follows the DNA of the existing Gaming OC cards. And with the Nvidia RTX 4060 Ti landing just a few days ago, AMD has a full-on battle on their hands today. And I'm eager to see what this new card from Gigabyte can do, especially as the RX 7600 in MSRP form wasn't received overly well. But before we get into that, here's a quick word from this video sponsor. Hello mate, you alright? Yeah, just got all the bits for my banging new gaming PC. Just got to put it together. It's going to be so much better than yours. Oh, right. What did you get then? The latest Intel 12th gen processor, a feature-packed motherboard, and 32 gig of DDR4 memory. See? Miles ahead of yours. You realise that board needs DDR5 memory, don't you? Don't tell me you went and bought the wrong stuff. DDR4 is so 2014. I can't believe you was that stupid. What? No, you're joking. What should I get then? For me, I'd be looking at Corsair's newest Vengeance DDR5 kits, or if you're wanting that all-important RGB, then go for the Dominator Platinum RGB. Oh, you are a lifesaver, thanks, but where can I find out more? By clicking the link in the description below, of course. And you call me the stupid one. Let's talk about the card. It looks pretty familiar, and so it should, as it uses the standard Gigabyte shroud design. Gigabyte tends to create one decent design and just, well, sticks with it for a very, very long time. This helps them keep costs down and reliability up. And as they say, if it ain't broke, don't fix it. It features their usual triple fan Windforce style layout too, and the three large fans span the length of the card. And true to the usual Gigabyte style, the middle fan spins the opposite way to the other two, helping create a kind of powerful vortex through the card to help pull even more heat away from the actual heatsink. Kind of works to reduce turbulence at the same time as well. Now, I've always been a massive fan of the Gaming OC cooler, and the card is actually really tidy looking, with large heat sinks that pretty much cover the side of the card with some heat pipes visible, but they're largely located a little bit deeper in the card. The classic 8-pin power connector is here too. AMD is still not fussing with that new stuff from Nvidia, which again should help keep their production costs down too. Plus, on the upside, you don't need to upgrade your PSU or deal with those silly 12VH PWR connectors either. Around the rear, the backplate looks great in that sort of lighter colour and a nice change from it just being, bog standard black. There's a funky digital design in the corner, matching up with the aggressive shapes of the various cutouts on the card. Of course, that big cutout does actually have some function because it allows the rearmost fan to pull air right through the card, further improving the overall cooling performance. In terms of connections, there are 2 HDMI ports and 2 display ports on this card, which is interesting as the Sapphire had 1 HDMI and 3 display ports. So that could be a big factor for some multi-monitor customers, depending on what monitors you're actually using. With the shroud removed, the PCB looks really busy with quite a lot of print on it, but it looks well made too, with neat and tidy hardware and soldering throughout. There are 4 VRAM chips though, giving this card its 8 gig. Wouldn't be surprising, especially after some of the backlash recently, that if AMD wanted to potentially upgrade this and bring out a 16 gig model, we might actually see that. Depending on how they're going to sort of go about it, there may be more VRAM chips or they may just increase the capacity. Now, the backplate isn't just for show either. It does have thermal pads making contact with the vital components of the GPU, which should again really help with the cooling performance. So it's going to be interesting to see exactly how this compares with the Sapphire card that we've already looked at. The heatsink is made up of 3 separate sections, with a large one on the left, one above the GPU die, and a thicker one to the right. And all are connected via direct contact heat pipes, with 4 large ones running through the left and right blocks, as well as a single one feeding the smaller middle section. Now, being an OC card, you'd expect it to be pre-factory overclocked, and it is, but it's a bit of a weird one, because in terms of the clock speeds, it actually comes in the same as the Sapphire Pulse card at 2355 MHz game clock and 2755 MHz on the boost clock. So to differentiate this card from the pre-factory overclock on the Pulse really comes down to the cooler and what that's actually able to do. So the card is pretty typical of what we've come to expect from a Gaming OC model of card from Gigabyte, but with our thoughts pretty clear on the value for money aspect of the RX 7600, I'm a little unsure if the Gaming OC is going to do enough to warrant the extra outlay of cash over a reference or MSRP based card, especially as it comes in with identical clock speeds. So to make sure that the card is performing as we'd expect, we put it onto our GPU test bench with an Intel Core i9 12900K on an Asus Maximus Z690 Hero motherboard with 32GB of Patriot Viper 6200MHz dual channel memory. All testing was performed on Windows 11, and as different variants of the same GPU generally don't offer a huge amount of extra performance, we wanted to see kind of more how the gaming OC compares in a small handful of games, especially to the Sapphire Pulse that we've already looked at. Now, if you do want to see a more in-depth review of the RX 7600 as a GPU and how it performs in a lot more games, then I'd invite you to check out our launch day coverage of the RX 7600. Also, as this card is aimed at 1080p gaming, that's what our focus will be on, along with seeing how the cooler performs and obviously keeps those temperatures under control. So with that out of the way, let's get into those glorious benchmarks. Starting with Call of Duty Modern Warfare 2, and straight away we can see the gaming OC card getting to work as it edges a 2% lead over the Sapphire 7600 Pulse in the averages and a slightly larger 3% in the 1% lows. This now also puts it slightly ahead of the RTX 3070. In Cyberpunk, again, the Gigabyte Gaming OC gave a small uplift over the Sapphire Pulse card by just under 2% in the averages and matching it in the 1% lows. This now puts the 7600 closer to the RTX 3070 Ti, a card that once retailed for a staggering $599. Death Stranding sees performance coming in identically to the Sapphire Pulse OC card in the averages, but does command a small 1% lead in the lows as well. Then in Watch Dogs Legion, we see a small performance boost over the Sapphire MSRP based card of 2% in the averages and also in the 1% lows. This now puts the RX 7600 ahead of the RTX 3060 Ti Gaming X Trio that we tested as well. So performance-wise, it pretty much lines up with what I expected. While the Gaming OC does have the same clock speeds as the Sapphire Pulse OC, the extra boost in performance is likely down to the superior cooler, which allows the card to remain at its rated boost speed just for that little bit longer and more of a sustained period of time. And this is what you're paying extra for with the superior cooling solution. This is pretty clear to see when we run an hour-long loop of F122, where the GPU temperature sat around 52 degrees, a whole 20% lower than the Sapphire Pulse OC. For the hotspot, it again comes in lower than the Sapphire Pulse, around 77 degrees, though did see it peak at 78 degrees, which still puts it 2 to 3 degrees lower. The memory junction was also lower by 5% in comparison, sitting at 76 degrees, all while the fans didn't really go above 1900 RPM. Which does seem a little bit high, but again is lower than the MSRP base card that we looked at, and isn't that audible at all. During this loop, the power came in around the same 180 watts as the Sapphire card, so was evenly matched there. So as a whole, it's cooler and quieter than the MSRP base card, but that's a bit of a given and expected as this card is around $50 or £50 more expensive over AMD's reference NBA card and any other MSRP based card like the Pulse OC from Sapphire. So overall, things are good, but isn't all that amazing, because at the heart of it, well, it's still an RX 7600, which, as we know, while it's affordable in the grand scheme of things, still doesn't offer better value for money than most of the 6600 series. When comparing the value of the 7600 Gaming OC to the Sapphire Pulse OC and the other cards we've tested, it's clear to see that over the 4 games we tested, the Gigabyte card does offer worse value for money over an MSRP based card by around 16%. Considering how close the performance is on the 7600 to the 6600 and the stark difference in terms of cost per frame, the last generation RDNA 2 card definitely is the better in terms of bang for buck. It's a similar story in the UK with the Gaming OC coming in 17% more expensive per frame when compared to the Sapphire Pulse, though across the small selection of games, the Pulse card is the cheapest in terms of cost per frame, without going used for the likes of an RTX 2080, RTX 2070 or even a 10 series card. Obviously that has its own fair share of problems with lack of warranty, you don't know whether it's been mined on and all that kind of crazy stuff. So there we have it, the age-old argument of spend more, get more. Though, I don't know, that doesn't really translate to value for money. And that's what we're all about. Just like the launch day review, we made it, I think, abundantly clear that the RDNA 2 based RX 6600 is the superior card if you're on a budget. And you'd like to think that they will continue to kind of fall in price once stock starts flowing through the channel of the newest GPU from Team Red. I guess the only fear with that is that while the RX 6600 at the moment is cheaper and may continue to drop, no, stock's not going to be around forever. So you have to keep a watchful eye on things, or you may end up waiting for it to go down and down and down, and then just realizing that you're going to end up missing out if you wait too long. Now, obviously, if you do want the latest technology and a bit more future-proofing, especially as AMD will be officially launching FSR 3, then yeah, I guess it's a pretty clear choice that the 7600 in either MSRP form or the gaming OC is the only choice at the moment. Whether the gaming OC is worth it over the Sapphire, well, that's a little bit trickier, as performance is very, very similar, but it's hard to deny the cooling performance that we saw from the gaming OC, where it kept the core and the memory a bit more in check. Also, couple that with quieter fan operation, it's definitely one to consider. But I don't know, for me, I just wish that the gaming OC was around $269 and then the MSRP base card closer to, say, $229. If that can happen, then it's a bit of a no-brainer. And the only way that's going to happen is if AMD wake up and smell the coffee and do some price cuts, which could very well happen if Nvidia have anything to say about it when they come to release the RTX 4060 non-TI, which could, and it's a big could, offer an even better proposition for getting the most for your money. That, along with consumers simply not picking up the 7600 and buying it, will clearly be a demonstration that consumers just don't fancy it this time round. So yeah, let me know what you think. Is the $50 premium over the already somewhat lackluster reference spec palatable enough, or do AMD need to give their heads a bit of a wobble and read the market better? Let me know in the comments section below. And yeah, that about wraps this one up. Hopefully you enjoyed the video. If you did, a like and a sub to the channel would be amazing. And if you love what we do, then consider supporting us over on Patreon. You'll get access to behind the scenes content, monthly live Q&As, a special area on Discord, and so much more. The link for all that good stuff is down below. With that, I'll see you in the next one. See you later, guys. Bye-bye.